Hello, I am Elizabeth of Lore with a control to the multiverse, and today I am transmitting from my spaceship, the space for creativity and madness, to talk about something that, if this video has found you, may very well be affecting you, and it is a shadow timeline. So, my last video, I talked about a strange, somewhat heavy energy that has been affecting a lot of people, in particular divine feminine energies. And I talked about that in more plain spoken language, reading from the tarot. Today I'm going to talk in a more multiverse alien type of way about that energy, but we're going to go more in depth. So this is going to resonate with you if you are a starseed or an alien or someone who likes to explore the multiverse. This one's for you. So here's what I mean when I say we have been in a shadow timeline. It's not as frightening as that might sound to some. There's nothing inherently bad about shadows, even if the word in the English language may have an eerie connotation. What it essentially means is that it is a timeline where we have diverged from the straight and narrow path to do some shadow work, learn some lessons, take the scenic route, so to speak, through our own ego selves. It is a very egoic timeline, which is why a lot of things have been going haywire in the 3D, because that is the realm of the ego. And it's hard to control when you aren't firmly situated in the spirit, which is kind of the default setting for most of us when we learn to navigate. When we first learn to navigate this realm as babies, we're taught to do it from an egoic place. So it's very hard to unlearn that conditioning, and often we do have to do shadow work and go into the old traumas and learn lessons for our ego self. So basically, those of us who are here from another dimension, or from this dimension but on a mission, have what is often referred to as the highest timeline. You can call it your mission work or whatnot, your kind of default timeline. So imagine that is a pathway through a forest. It's the path that has been built for you. It's just going direct through the forest from point A to point B. Point B being where you're headed, the culmination of your mission. This shadow timeline is basically when you, instead of walking on that path, you decide to go off path. Now, it doesn't mean that there is no path there. There is something that you're following, but it's much harder to see. There's a lot of brambles in the way. It's not paved. It's not as well delineated, and you're not quite sure where you're going to end up. Even if you're pretty sure that this path does eventually take you to the same endpoint, yeah, you don't know what's going on the way. That's the shadow timeline. So a lot of us are here right now and have been because there was some lesson, some set of experiences that our ego self, our vessel that we're using to complete our mission in this dimension, needed to have happen in order to be able to fulfill our mission. So it's really not even off path per se. It's more like we're going on a journey and we had to take a stop to get a tune-up on the car. It's the scenic route. It's a detour. And it may not be unpleasant. Actually, for me, on this shadow timeline, the majority of my experiences have been awesome. Because for me, a lot of the lessons that I needed to learn were around trust, around bonding in relationships and community, and were like skills, learning fun skills and expressing myself. So those are fun. Those are fun lessons. People hear lessons and a lot of times they think, oh, trauma, terror, hard stuff. Not always. Some lessons are fun. Some schools have really good teachers who use art projects to teach you stuff. So a lot of us have been on that timeline, on a timeline like that, where things are fine and fun and we're having a good time. And yet there is still behind the scenes a sense that this isn't quite it. Like, you're not quite on path. Even if you're having a good time, even if things have been going, quote unquote, right, it's not, it doesn't feel familiar in the same way that everything does when you are on that one kind of straight and narrow path. There's a sense of belonging and a sense of being home when you're on that timeline that is just not quite here. It's not completely gone. If you're here with me, you'll know what I mean. It's not completely gone. You don't feel totally untethered or totally homeless or totally outside of yourself, but you don't quite feel there either. Now, here's where things in recent times for some of us may have begun to go a little amiss. So even though this was a timeline where we chose to go because we had certain lessons we needed to learn, and those lessons fuel and serve our mission here, whatever that may be, whether we know what it is or not, it was a necessary detour, a necessary pit stop. However, some of us may have been staying here a little too long. And the way we know that is when things start to fall apart. Things stop working. Things stop flowing, and things start to really feel like, okay, maybe I don't know who I am. Maybe I don't have a sense of home. Maybe I don't have a sense of belonging. Even if everything externally still looks right, even if you still have amazing people around you who care about you, even if you're still doing great things, there's just this increasing sense of wrongness and things just not working out. Things just, maybe you feel very tired. Maybe things that used to bring income very well are not doing it anymore for no logical reason. Maybe relationships with other people are starting to get out of balance and go astray, and you're not really feeling connected to friends who you were once very close to for no discernible reason. It's just a feeling. That's because you're still on the shadow timeline, but you've already learned the lesson that you were meant to be here to learn. So now you're just kind of hanging out, and it's costing you. So we're on a mission, right? When we go on this shadow timeline to learn a lesson, that's essentially paid for. It's part of the mission, basically. It's a detour, it's a longer route, but it's something we're supposed to be doing. When we decide to stay and hang out, then that starts to come out of pocket, right? So we start getting taxed energetically, financially, through connections, through different things just kind of breaking down because we're supposed to go back to that other timeline. And we're being signaled to go back. So, there's a couple of options now. One is to stay. You can at any point choose to not do your mission. You can choose to stay on this timeline if you really like it. And if you jump kind of feet first and you're like, you make the conscious decision, I have chosen not to return to the mission that I was previously doing, and I would like to be on this timeline, then things are going to start flowing for you because you've made the choice to make this your home. And there are beings, there are souls that live in the shadow timeline. For them, it's not a shadow timeline. There are people whose mission is to help people who come to this timeline. For them, that's home. You could make this your home too, if you want to. And likely you will end up having some kind of work that's very similar to what you were doing previously. Your mission here will probably be similar, but it won't necessarily be the same. You're the one who has to weigh the importance of that. And whether you want to make this your home or you want to return to the home you were on before. Here's the other thing you can do is you can choose to go back. So for most of us, and I got the message that this is actually not true quite for all of us who are here, but for most of us who are here, we made a choice that brought us here. There are a few I'm sensing who were kind of pushed here because they really needed it but weren't making that choice. But for the majority of us, we chose to come here. And if you think about it, you can actually go and identify the moment when you chose that. Now, you may have not sat in your home and thought, I choose to go to a shadow timeline where I'm going to learn a bunch of lessons so that I can complete my mission work in a more effective manner. But you made a choice that diverged your timeline. So for me, the choice that I made was one that was born out of fear, pain, and distrust in the universe and the multiverse and the plan. So I had to learn lessons of releasing all of that and trusting more and honestly receiving everything I asked for and realizing that that was all born out of the ego and that was never anything that wasn't part of my soul's mission, that wasn't truly aligned with spirit rather than born from ego, was never going to be as fulfilling, was never going to be properly fulfilling. So for you, it's going to be your own, something personal for you. It was probably born out of something similar. It was probably born out of a sense of failure or fear or desperation or pain or anxiety. So here's an example. Maybe this is very kind of basic. A lot of us have more intricate, kind of complex cosmic mission work but just to be, for the sake of example, let's say your mission work is to be an actor. And, for whatever reason, there's something that you're able, some energy, some message that you're able to transmit through acting. And you were working really hard to become an actor with a wide audience so that you could reach all the people that you're supposed to reach for your mission. And of course, that's your mission, so that was bound to happen, right? And you can feel that. You can feel that it's part of your mission and it's bound to happen. But it wasn't happening on your egoic timeline. It wasn't happening fast enough for your mind. And maybe it wasn't happening fast enough for your pocketbook either, and you were starting to get really worried about paying the bills. And you were starting to even doubt whether maybe that was your mission. And maybe you made a choice to follow a different career path. And maybe it was something else that was interesting to you, something else that you like, but not something that strikes your passion the way that acting does. And so on the shadow timeline, you were granted that. And you didn't have to worry anymore about whether you would pay the rent the next month. And you were reaching enough people to kind of at least feed your egoic sense of like accomplishment. But you're not doing your mission work. And maybe on that other timeline, you were going to get that big break, like right around the corner. And you were going to get there. But instead you detoured, you veered off to learn some lessons. So you've been learning the lessons on the timeline. Now, how do you get back? You have to reverse the decision you made. Now, you can't literally reverse it, undo taking that career path and everything that happened, nor should you, because you learned a lot of lessons that you needed, and you gained a lot that was helpful for you, and that your higher self and your guides deemed would actually help you accomplish your mission much better. But you may have to step away from that career path and focus again on acting now. You may have to take the leap of faith that you weren't able to take before now. So that's how you get back. You reverse the decision, you go and do it now. But do it with gratitude and respect. because whatever you learned, whatever you gained, whatever happened on this timeline was for your highest good. So if your choice is to return to that main timeline and to go back to your original mission, do it with respect and gratitude. If your choice is to stay, then also honor the original mission and also recognize that you're probably going to still have to do it at some point, maybe in another lifetime, if you don't come back to it in this one. I'll be honest, I haven't channeled too much about completely just walking away from the mission to go into a different timeline. I know that we're not being punished or forced, so I don't think that anything terrible will happen, but if you make that choice, you need to make sure you really make it. And what I mean by that is that you mean it. You don't want to go back to that mission. You don't still hold it inside as your core mission. And most of us have that encoded in us, so it's going to be hard to make that choice. You sit with yourself and listen strongly to your intuition. And whether you feel you can really do it, whether you feel that staying here in this timeline and living the life that you have been offered on this timeline is really going to satisfy and fulfill you for this lifetime. Because if not, then you're still going to be holding the codes for that other mission, and that means you're going to still be getting pushed back to that other timeline, which means all of the things that are falling apart are going to continue to fall apart. They can't come together unless you fully commit to this timeline. So that's what you've got to do. You've got to fully commit to one or the other. Now that you're aware that you're on a shadow timeline, it's time to make that choice. Do you stay here and make this your full-time timeline, or do you return? Staying in between is just going to cause more suffering. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I know that was a lot. Leave a comment. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share with any starseed mission worker friends who may benefit from this knowledge. And I'll see you on the next one.